Hey, sixth grade. Welcome to our dragster unit lesson. And in today's lesson, we're going to be discussing a couple things like streamlining and aerodynamics, but most importantly, what your goal here is for this lesson. So during this lesson, you're going to be building a dragster. That dragster is going to be built out of a block of wood. The block of wood looks like this. It is made of balsa wood. It is very light in weight. And everyone will get the same shape, including the hole in the back, so we can put a CO2 cartridge into that hole. And we'll race these dragsters down the hallway so that we have a little mechanism that pops that CO2 cartridge and shoots the cars down the hallway. So obviously, you can't really put two wheels on this because there's more to it than just this. But your goal is to be the fastest car in the class. What that means is your car needs to be faster than every single kid in your class. So you can take a second and look around, and there's some good competition here. So now you have to figure out how to make it fast. So here we go. So your goal is to be fast. And there are two ways in this class that we can accomplish that goal. The first way is you want to be lighter. What that means is you want, when everything is said and done, for your car to be the lightest car in the class. So these blocks of wood, they're pretty heavy. And so what we have to do now is we have to take this block of wood and we have to change this block of wood. We have to shape it. We've got to design it, cut it, everything. And when we're done, we're going to get something that looks like this. And by the way, this was created out of that block of wood. Then when you're done with this, then you've got to add wheels, axles, bearings, all of this great stuff to make it an actually fully functional car that can shoot down the hallway. When you're done with that car, we will put it on a scale and we will weigh it. And everybody will weigh their cars. And what you're hoping for is that your car is the lightest car in the class. The reason for this is, if you remember that CO2 cartridge hole, well, each CO2 cartridge is the same. They all have the same power in that CO2 cartridge. And to push that car down the hallway, the CO2 cartridge needs something lighter. So the lighter it is, the easier it is for that CO2 cartridge to push it down the hallway. So the easier it is for it to push down the hallway, the faster it's going to be. So here we go. Lighter is faster. Lighter is faster. The second thing that we need to be streamlined. Oh boy. What that means is that your car needs to have a shape that can cut through the wind. That's all what streamlining is. It has a shape that has little to no wind resistance. Now, wind resistance is easy. Any resistance is easy. It's anything that pushes against whatever direction that's going. Okay, so if I'm trying to move this way, something pushes against me to push me back, that's called resistance. And in every area of the world, and at least in our world, there's air all around us. And although there might not be wind per se in this air, as we walk through the air, wind will hit our face and our body. And we don't really notice it as much, but it does happen. This is not the time to stand up and walk around the class to see if, do not do that, please. Just next time you're walking to your next class, try to see if you can feel the wind. Now, these cars that you're about to create, they will be going down the hallway at about 75 to 80 miles an hour. And that's pretty fast. So if you've ever been in your parents' car on a summer day and it's really dry, there's no wind at all, but your parents are driving, let's say, to the beach or something, and you put your hand out the window. As soon as you put your hand out the window, you can feel the wind. Your parents' car is going 65 to 75 miles an hour down that highway. You put your hand out the window, the wind pushes you back. That's what it does. It catches all the little surface area of your hand and it pushes you back. And by the way, this is surface area. Anything that can stop wind and catch it or hold it is called surface area. And if you put your hand out the window, it pushes back. All of that pressure you can feel from your parents just doing 65 miles an hour down the road is the amount of pressure you're feeling in that wind. You're going to get more than that down the hallways of this school because 65 miles an hour is clearly not as fast as 75 to 80. And that amount of miles an hour for your car is going to create a lot of wind. And that wind has to be able to coast around your car. So to be fast, we need to be lighter and we need to be streamlined. Lighter is faster, streamlining just how the object's going to cut through the wind. Another example of this is, let's say you're a soccer player. We're just using soccer because that's the sport that I play. So I know a good amount about that. Here's our soccer ball. Now let's say I normally can kick about 40 yards. I take the ball, can kick it 40 yards with a little bit of effort. Ball gets shot out. There it is, going that direction. Okay? So I kick the ball 40 yards. Now I play on a very windy day. The wind is coming at our body. So we're going the direction of the goal. The wind is shooting towards us. I kick the ball with the same force that I normally would to go 40 yards. But now when that ball gets into the air, what happens is the wind, and I'll use red for my wind, is hitting the face of the ball, the surface area, just like your hand. It's hitting the surface area of the ball. And what it's doing is it's putting pressure on that ball. It's pushing the ball, giving you wind resistance, right? Wind resistance. And now if I kick the ball, which at the same power that I normally do from 40 yards, I kick the ball and I, boom, hit it hard. Wind is hitting it harder because now there's a windy day and the ball only goes 20 yards. And that's what wind resistance can do. It can actually slow down the progress of an object going through the wind. Your job is to be the fastest car in the class. So whatever you're creating can't have that surface area in the front of it. It just can't have this. So you got to figure out how to create a shape where the wind can flow around it. And we're going to see more of that here. So let's erase. And let's go to the next slide. Here we go. So surface area, that's the first thing we want to discuss. And in this case, if you built the gliders and you've gone through that already and now we're on to a different unit, then you understand this a little bit better as if you didn't build it, but that's not a big deal. This is really simple to understand. So our gliders and all planes, they have these wings that come out, and underneath the wings is like a thicker area of surface area. So when the plane is landing, the wind catches underneath on the wings and slows its descent to allow it to land safely. Well, these extreme jumpers have what's called a wingsuit on, and what's happening is all the air is getting caught underneath and slowing them down as they're falling, and they can decide which way they're going to go, and then eventually they're going to pull a ripcord and a big parachute's going to come out, and that's going to have a ton of surface area, and all of the wind is going to get caught in the parachute and they're going to float to the ground and land safely. That type of surface area is a good surface area. They need that surface area so they can live. Otherwise, and we don't want anybody doing that. So we need a surface area of our parachute to slow us down, or of these wingsuits to allow them to kind of have more fun in the air and move around and be able to change their direction a little bit. So there are good and bad types of surface area. Good surface area, a kite. The face of the kite, which has all that surface area on it, when you're pulling the kite, it catches the wind, and that's what keeps it up in the air, is that surface area. Bad surface area, the windshield of a car. Sometimes the windshield of a car will catch a lot of wind and it'll be pounding against the car. And when that happens, it slows the car's progression down the street. And it forces the driver to use more gas to get down there. So on really windy days, it is very difficult to drive down the road, believe it or not, because of all the wind hitting against that windshield. So that's good versus bad. Another example in this class, good surface area would be for the wings of your gliders. As you're landing, you need the surface area underneath the wings to land, because remember, you're launching them up there, and if you've done this, you understand what I'm saying, but you launch your gliders up there and they'll float to the ground like real planes. Bad surface area is any area of the car that can catch wind. So as your car is racing down the hallway and wind gets caught in a certain areas, it's going to slow your car down. And so you don't want that surface area there because you're trying to be the fastest car. So always think about good versus bad surface area. Next, here's an example of a car from the 80s. This car is a Honda Civic, and we will draw how the wind would go across it. In this case, I'll use blue. And what will happen is the wind will come out and it'll hit the face of these areas. It'll hit that windshield and bank off, and all of these areas will cause a problem of wind resistance and slowing the car down. And it costs a lot of money to run a car like this. It's heavy too, so we're not really talking about the heaviness of it as much as we are talking about streamlining, but you can see how these two angles how the harsh angle of the windshield, the flat front of this, are going to get a lot of wind caught into it and slow it down. Whereas the newer models, the way they design cars now, have more of a streamlined shape where the angle of the windshield isn't as harsh as it used to be. And now the wind can coast over the car. Yeah, wind will always get caught in here for cars that have engines. Like the Tesla doesn't have an engine, so you may not see what's called a grill in the front. But what the grill does, believe it or not, is it allows wind to get into the engine and cool it off. You don't need to worry about that because our dragsters, they don't have an engine. They have a CO2 cartridge, and you don't want wind getting into that. Doesn't need it. Here, this car has an engine, so it needs wind to get inside. But if you look at the top of the car, how nice and smooth it is. Everything's at the same angle, and so the wind will coast across the top. Now, what you should know is that, I must hit a button, sorry. What you should know is that this car right here is the same model and make as the other car we just saw, this one. This one was built in the 80s, and they realized we have to make things a little bit more streamlined, and as they slowly evolved, they came up with the next one, which is this guy, and a little bit better of an angle, as you can see. All right, so now that you have a little bit of an understanding of streamlining and surface area, we have to go to our next level. You're going to be given a worksheet, and that worksheet's going to have 4 of these shapes on it. These shapes are your side view of the dragster, that's the side view, and then the top view of the dragster, which is the top view. And in our next video, I'm going to tell you guys, or teach you guys, how to start designing just your side views. And in the video after that, we'll talk about the top views. So next video, side views, video after that, top views. And that is the next step of this class. See you then.